early on in my podcasting journey, I landed an interview with really what I would call a dream guest. Now, can't use names right now because you'll see why. Anyway, landed the dream guest. I was so excited, and it went so well. The guest was phenomenal. Our conversation just flowed. It was just absolutely amazing. And as I was wrapping up the show and said goodbye, I felt like $10 million and like I was flying at 30,000 feet. And then the guest signed off, and then I glanced over, and oh my gosh, I still get the feeling, my whole body, woo!
Welcome to Launch It, the Podcast Maestro, your gateway to becoming a thought leader in your field. Dive into the world of elite podcasting and master the art of influence and inspiration. And now, podcast personality, award-winning author and actress, Anne Scottlin.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today. I'm excited to be here today, and I'm so thrilled to welcome you to Launch It, the Podcast Maestro, and I'm the Podcast Maestro. So I'm glad you're here and joining me to learn how you can take your game to the next level, how you can become an influencer, how you can become a global voice that people look to for wisdom in your area of specialty. So now, as I said, I wasn't always the Podcast Maestro because for everything, there's a first time. For this podcast, this is the first episode. And everything that happens for the very first time, I actually had jitters when I came in today, which is so weird. For the thousands and thousands and thousands of hours I have podcast and been on camera, I was like, I cannot believe I felt like I had like a whole butterfly conservatory in my stomach. But for everything that there's first time, things are harder the first time. So when you're starting your podcast, just expect to have a few jitters. So there is your freebie lesson number one. I mean, just let me give you an example. First time, I'm trying to think of something. First time of me glacier climbing. This is a good one. So I was climbing Mount Rainier, which is a 14,400 foot volcano in Washington State in the United States. It's snow and ice covered all year long. It's completely, I think it has, it has a ton of glaciers. I don't want to say 30, but I'd probably be wrong. So on the whole mountain, and it's a volcano. So that happens. It steams. Anyway, I decided I was going to climb to the top along with my dad and my brother and our team. We were with a team. We had a guide, and it was a 2-day enterprise. So definitely my first time climbing a really high mountain, especially a glaciated one. We had to spend the night on the side of the mountain, which was wild. More stories about that later. But we had to get up at 12 midnight to start the ascent to the top. And the reason why is once the sun comes up and starts warming the snow, you can't rely on the glacier not slipping. So we had to get up at midnight and then climb for 6 hours in the dark until the sun came up. So that was interesting in itself. We had, headlamps on, crampons on our boots, ropes roped together, and we climbed for 2 or 3 hours. And then we get to what looked like a small canyon, which of course was a crevasse. And if anyone knows anything about mountains and mountain climbing, you know what a crevasse is. It's basically where the glacier breaks a little bit because it's a moving mountain of ice. And so it goes over a big, huge rock formation or something, and it kind of goes like this. Well, we had to cross it. Well, I had been told that you might have to cross them and that they could be several feet across and we'd be roped and you really have to but you get a running start and you jump, you have an ice pick in your hand. But this is my first time, so I'm pretty much terrified. And then we get there. Not only do you have to jump across it, and I'm not tremendously tall. Sometimes I say I'm vertically challenged. So not only do you have to jump it, but because you're jumping uphill on the mountain, the crevasse is like this. So not only do you have to jump from here, but you have to land here. Now, in actual measurements, it probably wasn't that bad for a short person in the middle of the night in the dark, absolutely terrified. This was huge. So this became for me my mountain climbing. I call it my thrilling leap of faith. And I made it in the first go, but I literally wasn't sure I would. And the only thing I knew was that I had people on one end of the rope on the other side that had already crossed with all of their ice picks in the ice holding on, and the people behind me doing the same thing. So if I really did miss it and fell into the crack, my rope would catch me, they would catch me, and I would just have to they'd have to pull me back out. So what the Podcast Maestro about is preventing you falling into crevasses. So to what tends all this preface? Yes, that was it. When you're set out to become a thought leader in your field through world-class podcasting, my job is to help you not fall into the crevasses and help you avoid those things, prepare you for those things. But even then, you always have to have that thrilling first leap, that leap of faith. So I hope you're going to jump in with me. We're going to have so much fun. I've got a million more stories. But podcasting can be like that, jumping, that first leap, which really brings me to the purpose of this show, right? So today, this episode number 1, is really the prelude to your podcasting journey. And the purpose of the show, and this is what I'm really excited about, is helping you become global thought leaders through this medium, world-class podcasting. This is what you're going to learn right here on Launch It, the Podcast Maestro. That is me. And pardon the musical pun, Podcast Maestro. I know. I love classical music, among other genres, but I grew up with classically trained parents and went to college and universities that were really strong in classical music. And so I still love it, and thus the musical play on words. Now, the Podcast Maestro is not just about me. So let's explain that. So although I am maybe the purpose for this show, when you become a thought leader through global podcasting, you become the conductor of your own orchestra. And that's where all the instruments are your episodes, your posts, your social media stories, your LinkedIn presence. And your audience is waiting with bated breath to hear each new composition you release. So that makes you your own maestro of your own podcast, of your own brand. But before that, when you first launch your podcast, many people run into a lot of discouraging obstacles, small crevasses, whatever you want to call them. Some of those are what? Cost, production know-how, distribution know-how. I suffered from this one. Perfectionism. You can put off starting your podcast forever if you're a perfectionist. What else? Nerves, fear of public speaking. Okay, here's another story for you. So really early on in my podcasting journey, I landed an interview with really what I would call a dream guest. Now, I can't use names right now because you'll see why. Anyway, landed the dream guest. I was so excited. And it went so well. The guest was phenomenal. Our conversation just flowed. It was just absolutely amazing. And as I was wrapping up the show and said goodbye, I felt like $10 million and like I was flying at 30,000 feet. And then the guest signed off. And then I glanced over and oh my gosh, I still get the feeling, my whole body, woo! I realized I hadn't hit record. I think I can cry still, actually. Well, I was mortified, of course, because this was the kind of guest that you can't get back. There is no second take. There is no, hi, I'm pretty new at this, and can you get me back on your schedule a year from now? No. So I fell into a really big crevasse right there. And while this makes a good story, a true story, My job here on Launch It, the Podcast Maestro, is to help you avoid ever going through an experience like that, gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching, tear-dropping, you name it. So let's see, what is my experience? What gives me expertise in this field to help you? Well, as most of you already know, I worked in Hollywood as an actress for a decade, and in addition to that, I've been on radio, other television, movies, of course, national commercials. And then as I was transitioning, also got into podcasting. I did numerous solo podcast series, which was a lot of fun. And it's its own special animal, right? This is me doing a solo podcast right this moment. So now you know what that is. And then also I went into self-hosting, meaning I had guests on, and then co-hosting, which is another animal all on its own, having two hosts, and did even more shows with that and having guests come on. Well, what I discovered with the podcasting after already being an actress and so many other audio and video venues, I really discovered that when you're podcasting, especially video podcasting, which is what I love, you have this incredible value and opportunity of having a global voice, recurring, not just one movie, that you develop a real persona through podcasting. And I did this for many years in all these different forms. And over time, after several years, other seasoned professionals in other fields that weren't podcasters, started coming to me, and they're like, what is your secret sauce? What is it that makes your podcast so successful? How do you get the views? How do you get the likes? How do you get a recurring audience? How is your production process laid out? Because I'm just doing this in my living room and it looks like heck, and it just looks awful, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to work from notes. What am I supposed to do? So I started saying, well, listen, you're already an expert in your field, so content isn't an issue. We're not like, hi, my name is Joe and let's shoot the breeze. This is not the kind of podcasters that I typically work with. I work with people who are leaders in their field, doctors, scientists, CEOs, business entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, best-selling authors. The list goes on and on. People who are developing their voice globally. And now I help them become even bigger thought leaders in their own area of expertise through this art of world-class podcasting, which is what I teach right here. So again, I started telling you about my approach, which is a fusion really of my Hollywood production knowledge. I not only acted, I also wrote, produced, wrote scripts, directed. So all of the tools that I learned over all that time in Hollywood about production in general became incredibly useful in my toolkit for podcasting, for podcast production, also for distribution. Also, my actual time in front of the camera in general. So this is one of the little stumbling blocks that a lot of people have, is like, I can't stand just staring at myself on screen and recording. That sounds absolutely horrific. So I used to actually teach acting as well. I was an acting coach. So I have a lot of skills to help anybody who has sort of that super anxiety about being on camera, about personal presentation. What do you do? How do you look? How do you dress? In addition to all of the technical stuff, lighting, sound, cameras, all of that, I can definitely help you with from those experiences. Another part of my approach is my proven success as a business consultant. So I've been working with clients and working as a consultant for so long now that it's second nature. I've developed this intuitiveness when I'm working with my clients, and working with you guys is literally, and gals, I'm getting myself in trouble on day one, is literally my favorite thing to do. So, but yes, I have experienced, certified, coach as well. So in addition, I have the cumulative experiences of myself, all those podcasts in all their different forms, audio, video, solo, single host, guest host, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and of my clients. So I'm taking a condensing version of all of this that I've learned over the years and bringing it to you. And I also have my unique perspective, which is really helpful, I think, to podcasting and to helping you become a thought leader through your podcast, is my unique perspective as a social media influencer. Knowing how to distribute your project, your podcast is one of the top things. You can make a hands down 5-star killer podcast, but if no one ever sees it, it's not going to help you spread your message. It's not going to make you a thought leader, and it's definitely not going to help increase your bottom line. So, but my job is to help you do all those things. And I've helped countless professionals, experts become thought leaders. You'll be hearing from many of them as we go forward. So this is going to be not a super long episode today. I am going to wrap up in just a couple minutes. But before I do that, I just want to touch base. I want to give you a little bit of meat to take with you as you start thinking about starting your own world-class podcast. So I want to talk about podcasting as an art, because world-class podcasting really is an art. And it's important to understand all the tools that go into creating art. And it's also important to understand the powerful role of podcasting, not just as a creative outlet, but also as a voice. I mean, podcasting is the new frontier, really, of personal branding and thought leadership. Okay, so one is accessibility. You're reaching listeners during their daily routines when you're creating a consistent presence in their life. So there's a relationship in podcasting that is just a little different from, say, watching TV, because it's a little harder to do routine tasks or work on your computer at your job and watch TV. I know people do it, but I'm just using it as an illustration. You become something they can watch or they can listen to. And this is why I'm such a big believer in video podcasting, because we all have different types, right? We have the audio strong, we have visual. I'm super visual. That's why I do video podcasting. But when you give your audience as many formats as possible, it really helps them to see it. Other people just want to listen. And you're meeting them in their daily life. And then if they happen to miss you, they can always go look it up again. But everyone loves to watch you in your live stream. Another important point in how podcasting is really helping you reach new people is this connection. I kind of touched on that already. You're building a relationship with your audience, not just because you have a podcast, but through your shared story and experiences. So if you want to climb Mount Rainier, talk to me. And then my last number today of that is niche mastery. Number 3, niche mastery. So when you position yourself as the go-to expert in a specialized area through targeted content, you are becoming a master of your niche, which is really what a thought leader is. They say niche. Is it niche? Are we in France? Where are we? Anyway, you take your pick, but niche mastery. Position yourself as that go-to expert. So like one of my shows, Global Socialpreneurs, one of my podcasts and streaming television shows, which I also help people not only podcast in traditional formats, audio or YouTube only, but also get them on Apple TV, Amazon, other platforms. There's so much that you can literally turn your podcast into a streaming TV show now, which this is, just so you know. And but yes, so my show Global Socialpreneurs gave me a real opportunity to help other social entrepreneurs. I'm a social entrepreneur and a long-term coach and consultant. And so I was able to offer my own branding experience to help social entrepreneurs become financially successful, since we're all really working to make this world a better place, right? So Global Socialpreneurs was a great way to really offer my branding experience to social entrepreneurs, people who wanted to get into that, entrepreneurs who want to convert into social entrepreneurs, whether they wanted the free pointers, whether they wanted to take a course, whether they wanted to work out with me one-on-one. It really gave me a voice and made me a thought leader in the area of global socialpreneurship and social entrepreneurship in general. And I was a guest on shows all over the world, in addition to my own, helping people with that. So it really does help you become a thought leader. And also raw for social entrepreneurship. I am one, as I said, and we're all working to make this world a better place. So as we wrap up, this show is going to help you overcome your podcasting hurdles that you don't even know exist yet, really, truly, like didn't press record. But that episode that I experienced was also a breakthrough for me with that name guest, the episode nobody ever got to see. Well, what it really taught me was the irreplaceable value of a good producer. So in the coming episodes, I will be telling you more about that, about producing, about good producers, self-producing versus having a producer, other things you're going to be getting soon in upcoming episodes, checklists, outlines, tricks, and tools of the trade. I'm going to answer your individual questions and have some surprise guests, which I'm very excited about and which I promise my producer will record. In conclusion, I hope you will accept my really warm invitation, join my podcast community. Also, share this link with anybody who would just like to come on, have fun with me, hear stories, and hear about starting a world-class podcast, how that can dramatically improve and change your branding, make you a thought leader. On whatever platform you're watching or listening today, do me a huge favor, join the party by liking, also subscribe, and email me. You see on the ticker tape where you can email me directly, contact@annescottlin.com. Send me your questions. Send me your topic suggestions because your voice absolutely matters. This show is about you. It's not about me. So when you send me stuff, I will be featuring many of your comments and questions on the show. So I'm just so thrilled to have with me on this fun adventure. It really is fun. So you've hit your stride in podcasting when it's fun. So I did have a little butterfly this morning, but now I'm good. And we really have fun as I help you become a global thought leader in your own field, in your area of expertise, which is already where you feel you're most natural. And so the show will continue to stream like it has been today in my regular slot, which is 12 p.m. EST on Wednesdays. That's 9 a.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. GMT. The rest you'll have to look up. I'm not going to go through the whole world right now, but I'm super excited to hear from you. I'll see you next week for another memorable episode. Welcome to Launch It. Bye.